I hadn't spoken to my sister in almost 8 months when I saw her standing behind a folding table at a church-run soup kitchen downtown. It was a Tuesday afternoon, cold, gray, the kind of day that makes the city feel tired. I volunteer there twice a month, mostly to stay busy, mostly to remind myself that life doesn't revolve around property values and stock portfolios. I was ladling soup when I noticed a familiar posture. Straight shoulders, controlled movements. Even in worn clothes, my sister always carried herself like someone who used to own something. And she had. A 5-bedroom house in the suburbs, white columns, double garage, the kind of place people take Christmas photos in. But there she was, hair pulled back loosely, no makeup, faded jacket, serving food, not receiving it, serving. And standing just a few feet away from her was her son, my nephew, 12 years old, holding trays, quiet, too quiet. I froze for a second. My sister was not the volunteer quietly type. She was the country club, hoe board, perfect lawn type. I walked closer. She saw me before I could speak. For a split second, something crossed her face. Shock. Then composure. She always had composure. "Hey," she said softly, like we'd seen each other yesterday. I looked at my nephew. He avoided eye contact. "What happened to your house?" I asked. I didn't mean to ask it that bluntly, but some questions don't wait politely. She paused. Her hands stopped mid-motion over a tray. And then, for the first time in my life, I saw my sister's control crack. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a small tremor in her jaw. "Not here," she said quietly. We finished the shift in silence. Afterward, she asked if we could walk. We stepped outside. The wind hit harder than I expected. Her son stayed inside, stacking chairs. "Where are you living?" I asked. She stared down the street for a long moment before answering. "An apartment." "That's not what I meant." She swallowed. "We sold the house." Sold. Not lost. Not foreclosed. Sold. That didn't make sense. She and her husband were doing well, or at least that's what everyone believed. Good jobs, clean image, private school tuition paid on time. "You hated that house," she added suddenly. That threw me. I never said that. You didn't have to. There was something in her tone, defensive, almost preemptive. "When did you sell it?" I asked. 6 months ago. 6 months, and she hadn't told me. That stung more than I expected. Why? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she said something that felt rehearsed. It was time. No, it wasn't. And we both knew it. Because people don't go from hosting wine tastings on marble countertops to serving soup quietly without a story in between. "Where's Daniel?" I asked, meaning her husband. Another pause. Then, "He's not around." That sentence felt incomplete. Not divorced, not passed away, not traveling, just not around. And that's when I realized something wasn't adding up. This wasn't downsizing. This wasn't voluntary. This was concealment. "Are you okay?" I asked her. She gave me a tight smile. "We're fine." That word, fine. It's the most dangerous word in the English language because it usually means the opposite. As we stood there, wind tugging at her jacket, I noticed something else. Her wedding ring was gone.
I didn't point it out. Instead, I asked the only question that mattered. Why didn't you tell me? She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a split second, I saw something beneath the composure. Shame. I didn't want you to think I failed. Failed. That's when I knew this wasn't about a house. It was about something much bigger. And whatever happened inside those white columns and manicured hedges had already collapsed long before the for sale sign went up. We didn't go back inside right away. Instead,
we sat on a low brick wall near the church parking lot. The wind had calmed, but the air still carried that late winter bite. My sister kept her hands folded tightly in her lap. That was always her tell when she was holding something in. Daniel left, she said finally. Left. Not we separated. Not we're working through things. Just left. For who? I asked quietly. She shook her head. For himself. That answer sounded practiced, clean, contained. Try again, I said. She exhaled slowly. There was someone, she admitted, but that's not the whole story. It never is. On the outside, their marriage looked solid. Vacations posted carefully, fundraisers attended. That house wasn't just a home, it was a statement. But what I didn't know, what no one knew, was that Daniel had been moving money. Not recklessly, strategically. Investments, she said, private placements, high-yield opportunities. I almost laughed. At 54, I've seen enough high-yield opportunities to know they usually yield heartbreak. He handled the accounts, she continued, said he didn't want me worrying about numbers. That alone told me too much. How much, I asked. She looked away. Enough. That's not an answer. Give me something real. Her voice dropped. Almost everything. My stomach tightened. Retirement accounts, college funds, emergency reserves. He had leveraged it all without telling her. The house wasn't sold for convenience. It was sold to plug holes. He said it was temporary, she whispered, that the returns were coming. Returns never come when secrecy is involved. When did you find out? I asked. After the IRS notice. That word hit like a stone. IRS. You don't accidentally stumble into an IRS notice without something serious behind it. Daniel hadn't just invested poorly. He'd hidden income, deferred reporting, shifted assets, and when the audit hit, the illusion collapsed. They were going to freeze accounts, she said. We had to liquidate the house fast. Now the timeline made sense. 6 months ago, quick sale, silence. But here's what didn't add up. If it was that bad, I said carefully, why are you serving here instead of receiving help? She gave a small, bitter smile. Because I'm not homeless. That's not what I meant. I know. She looked toward the church door where her son was stacking chairs. I didn't want him to feel like we were falling. So she chose service over visibility, volunteer over victim. Pride is a complicated thing, and my sister has always had plenty of it. Where's Daniel now? I asked again. Somewhere in Arizona, she said flatly, with the woman. He didn't just leave emotionally. He left geographically. Clean exit. Except nothing about this was clean. The IRS doesn't disappear because you change states. Debt doesn't dissolve because you stop answering calls. Are you liable?
I asked. That question mattered. She nodded slowly. Joint filing. Of course. He handled the finances. She signed the returns.
Marriage makes you legally intertwined, whether you understand the numbers or not. And suddenly, the image of her standing in that kitchen, hair tied back, sleeves rolled up, made more sense. She wasn't serving because she had nothing. She was serving because she was trying to maintain dignity while rebuilding from ash. But there was something else, something she still wasn't saying. Because people don't break down over just money. They break down over betrayal. When I asked about the house, I said quietly, "Why did you look like that?" Her composure slipped again, for a second. Then she said something I didn't expect. Because I didn't sell it. I felt the air shift. "You just told me you did." "We signed the papers," she corrected softly, "but I didn't sell it." That distinction was subtle and dangerous. "What are you saying?" I asked. She looked at me fully then, eyes tired, not defeated, just stripped. He forged my signature. The world got very still. I didn't speak for a few seconds after she said it. He forged my signature. The wind had picked up again, tugging at her hair, but she didn't move. She just sat there, staring at the pavement like the answer might be written in it. "You're sure?" I asked carefully. She gave me a look, not offended, just tired. "I've signed my name the same way for 30 years, she said. That wasn't it. Daniel hadn't just mismanaged money. He had accelerated the house sale by falsifying her consent on the closing documents. "He told me the buyer backed out," she continued. "Said we had time. I didn't find out until I got a notice from the title company thanking me for the smooth transaction." That's how she found out. A polite, automated email. Gratitude for something she never approved. The house, the one she decorated, maintained, refinanced twice, was already gone and legally transferred. "How?" I asked. "He handled the paperwork remotely, used electronic signatures, claimed I was traveling. Electronic convenience, the modern enabler of old-fashioned deceit." "Did you report it?" I asked. She hesitated. That hesitation told me more than the answer would. "Why not?" I pressed gently. Her eyes moved toward the church doors again. "My son was in the room when I found out," she said quietly. That shifted everything. Daniel hadn't just hidden finances. He had detonated their stability in front of their child. "I didn't want him dragged through depositions," she continued. "Didn't want him watching his father get charged." So she chose silence. Not because she forgave him, but because she was triaging emotional damage. That's the part outsiders don't understand. Legal justice is loud. Parental protection is quiet. The IRS investigation made it worse. Joint filing meant joint liability, even if she didn't know, even if she didn't benefit, even if the signature wasn't hers. The system doesn't care about emotion. It cares about documentation. "Are you fighting it?" I asked. "I filed for innocent spouse relief," she said. That surprised me. She wasn't passive. She was strategic. It takes courage to admit you were financially deceived. It also takes humility. "I'm meeting with an attorney next week," she added, "pro bono." That's when I understood something else. Serving at the shelter wasn't charity. It was community positioning. She wasn't just volunteering. She was building quiet alliances. Lawyers, counselors, local advocates, people who help without broadcasting. "You've been planning," I said softly. She nodded. I had to. Her son stepped outside then, hoodie zipped up, hands shoved into his pockets. He looked older than 12 in that moment, too aware. "You okay, buddy?" I asked him. He gave a short nod. Kids adapt faster than adults think, but adaptation doesn't mean immunity. "Does he know?" I asked quietly once he stepped a few feet away. "He knows his father made mistakes," she said. "He doesn't know about the forgery." "Why?" "Because I'm not ready for him to hate his father." There it was, the real fracture. Not financial, not legal, emotional inheritance. If she pressed charges, Daniel could face fraud accusations. If she stayed quiet, she absorbed debt and humiliation. Either way, someone lost something permanent. "And you?" I asked. "Me? Are you angry?" She let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. "I'm furious," she said calmly. That contrast struck me. Fury delivered in a whisper. That's the kind that lasts. "But anger won't fix it," she added. No, but clarity might. There was still something she hadn't said, something about the timing. "You found out 6 months ago," I said. "But you didn't call me." She looked at me then, really looked. "You've always been the stable one," she said. "I didn't want to show up broken." That hurt more than I expected, because I realized something in that moment. She wasn't ashamed of losing the house. She was ashamed of losing control in front of me. And pride between sisters can run deeper than resentment. "But here's the part you don't know," she said quietly. There it was, the next layer. "Daniel didn't just forge my signature," she continued. "He left something behind." I felt my pulse shift. "What?" She swallowed. "Debt in my name. Not just joint, soul." And that's when I understood why she was serving soup instead of sitting in court. Because the storm wasn't over yet. It was just changing direction. "Debt in your name?" I repeated. She nodded. "Lines of credit, 2 private loans, a business guarantee I never agreed to." "How?" She gave me that tired half-smile again. "Marriage." He had used joint documentation strategically. Not illegally in every instance, just manipulatively. He'd positioned her as guarantor on short-term business expansions, claiming she was aware. Some were digitally authorized, some were executed under shared credentials. Technically ambiguous, legally messy, and emotionally devastating. "How much?" I asked carefully. She didn't hesitate this time. 412,000. The number landed hard. Not catastrophic bankruptcy territory, but heavy enough to suffocate slowly. "And the house sale?" I asked. She stared at the ground. The sale covered most of his exposure. His exposure, not hers. The house had been liquidated to protect his failing ventures, not to stabilize the family. That reframed everything. "He knew the audit was coming," she said quietly. "He rushed the sale before liens could attach." Which meant the forged signature wasn't panic, it was strategy. He sold fast, secured liquidity, covered his own liabilities, and left her holding unsecured debt. "And the buyer?" I asked. "Corporate investor, closed in 10 days. That explained the speed.
Quick transaction, minimal scrutiny, digital processing, clean exit. Except it wasn't clean. Because here's the twist she hadn't yet said out loud. He wired a portion overseas, she added softly. There it was, the escape hatch.
Arizona wasn't random. Arizona was distance before departure. He had planned the exit. Not emotional collapse, calculated withdrawal. "And you didn't press charges because," I began. She interrupted gently, "Because if I press charges, the forensic review expands." Meaning, every account, every transaction, every signature, including the ambiguous ones where she had technically signed something she didn't fully read. It would become public, messy. Her son would see headlines. Her community would dissect timelines. Sometimes justice costs more than silence. "So you're absorbing it?" I asked. "No," she said, and this time her tone shifted, controlled, measured, strategic. "I'm restructuring." That word caught my attention. "How?" She stood up slowly. "Come with me." We walked 2 blocks to a modest apartment complex, brick exterior, clean but unremarkable. She unlocked the door to a 2-bedroom unit. Inside, simple furniture, minimal decor, organized. Not chaos, not despair. Precision. "I downsized intentionally," she said, "kept liquidity." "You said the house covered most of his exposure." "It did." "Then why the debt?" "Because I refused to liquidate everything." That made me pause. She hadn't fought the sale, but she hadn't surrendered entirely either. She pulled out a folder from a small desk. Inside were spreadsheets, payment structures, refinance proposals, legal correspondence. "This isn't collapse," she said. "It's transition." That word reframed the entire situation. She wasn't serving soup because she was destitute. She was rebuilding network capital, quiet credibility, stability through community. "And the debt?" I asked again. She looked at me, and for the first time since I saw her at the shelter, there was something almost dangerous in her eyes. "I'm contesting half of it." "How?" "The loans tied to the forged transaction are vulnerable." Forgery opens doors, not just to criminal court, but to civil leverage. "If I prove the signature was falsified," she continued, "I don't just clear my name. You unwind the sale." She didn't answer immediately, but she didn't need to, because now I understood. If the signature is invalid, the transaction is contestable, which means the corporate buyer could face title dispute, which means pressure, which means leverage. "You're not just surviving," I said quietly. "No," she replied, "I'm repositioning." And suddenly, the image of her at the soup kitchen shifted again in my mind. She wasn't hiding. She was recalibrating. Because sometimes the strongest move isn't dragging someone into court immediately. It's letting them believe they escaped clean until the paperwork catches up. "And Daniel?" I asked one last time. She smiled, not kindly. "He thinks I folded." That was the first time I saw it. Not shame, not humiliation. Patience. And patience in the hands of someone underestimated is a dangerous thing. 3 months after I found her at the shelter, she called me on a Thursday evening. Her voice was steady. "It's happening," she said. The forensic review had come back. The electronic signature attached to the house sale had metadata discrepancies, timestamps that didn't align with her device usage. IP logs routed through a VPN Daniel had used for business transactions. He hadn't just forged her name, he'd gotten sloppy. And corporate buyers don't tolerate title contamination. The investor who bought the house had already begun renovations. Money was moving, contractors hired, and now there was a legal cloud over the deed. He thought Arizona meant distance, she said quietly. He forgot about paper trails. The buyer's legal team contacted her attorney within days. Not aggressive, concerned. They wanted clean ownership. She had leverage now, real leverage. If we pursue full invalidation, her attorney explained, the sale can be reversed. Reversed. The word hung heavy. The house, the white columns, the maple tree, the kitchen she designed, could technically return to her. But it wouldn't be simple. It would require formal fraud filing, which meant Daniel facing potential criminal exposure, and her son watching the unraveling. That's when the real decision surfaced. Not about money, about legacy. "Do you want it back?" I asked her that night. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she said something I didn't expect. It stopped feeling like home before the sale. That was honest. The house wasn't the loss. The illusion was. Daniel called her once he realized the dispute had been filed. Not apologetic, panicked. "You're blowing this up," he said, according to her. "You already did," she replied calmly. He tried negotiation, then intimidation, then guilt. Classic rotation. But here's what he didn't expect. She didn't ask for the house back. She asked for settlement, structured repayment, debt assumption, full release of liability, in exchange for dropping criminal pursuit. Clean exit, on paper. Not emotional closure, financial closure. He accepted. Of course he did, because prison risk recalibrates pride quickly. The settlement didn't make her whole, but it stabilized her. Half the debt dissolved, the rest restructured. Manageable, legal, contained. The corporate buyer kept the house. Daniel disappeared quietly into whatever version of reinvention he'd convinced himself he deserved. And my sister? She didn't move back into white columns. She stayed in the apartment. Smaller, simpler, honest. The day the settlement finalized, she invited me over. No celebration, just quiet acknowledgement. Her son was at the table doing homework. He looked lighter somehow, less burdened. "Did we win?" he asked her softly. She smiled. "We didn't lose," she replied. That mattered more. Later that night, as we sat on her modest balcony, I asked the question I'd been holding since the shelter. "When I found you serving that day, were you embarrassed?" She thought about it. "Not embarrassed," she said. "Exposed." That's different. Exposure forces you to decide who you are without your facade. "I thought losing the house meant I failed," she continued. "But keeping my integrity mattered more." That's the kind of sentence you only say after surviving something. The house had been a symbol. The sale had been betrayal. But the real collapse happened long before the closing documents. It happened the moment she trusted someone else to manage everything quietly. And here's the final twist. 6 months later, she was hired part-time by the same legal aid organization that helped her. Not because she needed income desperately, but because she understood the terrain now.
fraud, forgery, financial manipulation inside marriages. She didn't just survive it, she learned it, and she became useful in a different way.
When I first saw her at that soup kitchen, I thought she had fallen. What I didn't understand was this: she was repositioning, not downward, forward. The house is gone, Daniel is gone. The columns, the manicured hedges, the curated image, gone. But what remains? Clarity, strength, and a son who watched his mother handle betrayal without becoming bitter. Sometimes the real wealth isn't what you recover, it's what you refuse to lose. And when I asked her that day, "What happened to your house?" she broke down because she thought that question defined her. It didn't. It was just the beginning of who she became after it.